They still remain as the top club in North America, the top team in Mexico, the Real Madrid of Mexico. All the pressure, all the money, all this legacy that they play with and play against. I think at times, in Mexico. And so this is another example of a team that I think is stacked to do it, prepared to do it. But now they're facing a city rival, and this is when all the history sort of mixes in with what is recency bias with Club America. And so
we are getting into the Liga MX playoffs. We are into the semi-final, and who better to discuss this than CBS Sports correspondent Felipe Cardenas. Felipe, before we get into the matchups here in the Liga MX playoffs, they have a little bit of a uniqueness in the knockout rounds of their playoffs. Can you explain to people who may not know what the tiebreaker rule and how it all works?
Yeah, I've been on this show before, and we're like, what is going on in Mexico? Like, it's sometimes the playoffs are difficult to understand. This one is a little bit easier. If you go back to the decision of Liga MX to pause promotion and relegation for 5 years, I think one of the trickle down effects of that decision is to give the regular season, the clausura or the apertura, in this case the clausura, more value. And so the tiebreaker in these two-leg playoffs goes to the team that finished higher in the standings. And so that was why you had the matchup last week that finished in a tie. Necaxa Tigres. Tigres is above, finished I believe was fourth in the table. Necaxa finishing fifth. And so Necaxa, they're out. Tigres gets that advancement, based on what they did in the regular season. So that's the tiebreaker moving into the semifinals as well.
I do like that rule, rewarding the regular season, particularly in a league with a couple playoff trophies at hand. So getting into these matchups, Toluca needed a late winner against Tigres when they last played. Are we expecting a cagey affair in this semifinal?
Probably, I would say that Toluca probably internally feels like they eliminated the best team in the playoffs. They could argue that Monterrey was, they're the most expensive side. They're a star-studded team. They had to go to Monterrey in the first leg. They lose 3-2, but it was enough for them to finish them off in the second leg at home. Toluca, remember, they're top of the table, the top seed. So they're going back to Nuevo León. They're going to play Tigres, another Monterrey-based team. So I think there's a familiarity there. And you mentioned it, Tom, like this team, these teams play each other. I think there is that notion that these are two teams that know each other very well. Two managers, both from Argentina. Tigres' manager, Guido Pizarro, remember, he started the season as a player. He was starting in midfield. Now he's the coach of Tigres. And so I give the advantage to Toluca, based on their form and the confidence that they've had throughout the year. They have some good players there under the radar. And El Turco Mohamed, their outspoken coach, I think, has this team ready to go. And like I mentioned, the tiebreaker gives them the advantage in this tie.
Felipe, we talk about sides that are familiar with each other. Two sides from DF, Cruz Azul and Club America, very much familiar with each other. That's now the fourth meeting since April, right? So how do you see, in terms of the familiarity, in terms of the recency, how do you see this match playing out, or this tie playing out?
Yeah, it's a derby. It's a derby. It's a Clásico. It's a Clásico Joven, the young Clásico of Mexico City. It's difficult to pick a favorite here. I think because it's a derby, because it is a Clásico, you expect these teams to really be. Tom mentioned a cagey matchup in the other one. I think this will probably be a bit more cagey just because of the pressure that happens when these two teams play in Mexico City. As far as form goes, Club America, as you know, they get Henry Martin back. They look like that team that is coming off a three-peat, winning 3 league titles in a row. And the star for them, though, is U.S. men's national team winger Alejandro Zendeja, scoring a brace in the last leg in that quarterfinal. And I think that's perhaps the avenue that they see that they can break down Cruz Azul. Meanwhile, Cruz Azul, I think, is very much an under-the-radar team. Some good players also, and some good players on the bench that aren't even starting for them, like Yorgos Giacomakis, Mateusz Bogusz, both players coming from MLS. They even have a Nico Romero, Lucas Romero, who was once the next Messi type of prodigy. He's on the bench. And so Cruz Azul, I think, a team mixed of young veteran players and another Uruguayan coach who I think gets them ready for these big matchups. So it is a toss-up, though. I think if I had to choose, it's probably easier to go with Club America, but it is one of those games that anyone can advance here.
Yeah, Felipe, you mentioned that Club America have won the last 3 league titles in Liga MX, and with such a competitive league, with so many big teams, with so much urgency from all these big teams, how difficult is this run? How impressive is this run that Club America are on, that they are one of the Final Four teams going for the 4th in a row?
Yeah, it's funny because in classic, I guess, scrutiny towards Club America, it's almost like that three-peat is like that's in the past. Now the scrutiny is like this team doesn't win this fourth one, and it's like a failure. And so I think that does really paint a picture of what it's like in Liga MX for these top teams, and the teams that are still alive, Toluca, Tigres. Trying to knock down Club America from this pedestal that they've been on for three seasons now. And so, I think it does show that they remain. Again, it's something that we all, I think, can agree with. They still remain as the top club in North America, the top team in Mexico, the Real Madrid of Mexico, all the pressure, all the money, this legacy that they play with and play against, I think, at times, in Mexico. And so this is another example of a team that I think is stacked to do it, prepared to do it. But now they're facing a city rival. And this is when all the history sort of mixes in with what is recency bias with Club America. And so the pressure is on them. I think if I'm Cruz Azul, you recognize that and you think you have perhaps a bone to pick based on the history between the two teams.
We go from teams flying high at the top to a team that it's been struggle buses of late. Rayados, they sacked their manager Martin Demichelis, which that seems to be the flavor of the month for him, or the flavor of the last calendar year now, with jobs coming and going. And they're rumored to be in for another Argentine in Gabriel Milito. What sort of fit do you think Milito could be? And if it's not Milito, who could be that next manager for Rayados?
Yeah, I think the common sense around this new hire is that Monterrey is going to want to make some sort of a splash. They're heading to the Club World Cup right now. They don't have a manager. Martin Demichelis was always under the gun. It's almost like he arrived and then he left. There wasn't much advancement in terms of style of play. He lost the locker room early, and the pressure was on him. I thought it would be a miracle if he did get to the Club World Cup, and if he was at that position, the scrutiny and the pressure would be really sky high. So, Gabriel Milito, very highly respected in Argentina. The last time he was coaching, he was with Estudiantes, really gets those teams motivated to play a rugged type of manager, really an old school South American type of manager that perhaps can bring discipline and order to that locker room. Mateus Almeida, another Argentine that ended his stint in Greece, he was rumored to be in talks with Monterrey. That appears to be out the window. So if it is Gabriel Milito, Milito is another guy that is in line and is a candidate for Boca Juniors, but there's reports that he wants to be a president of a club. And so if Monterrey wants to woo him to Liga MX and have him be the man to lead them to the Club World Cup, they're going to have to pay. And I think it would be a good hire. It'd be interesting to see how that plays out.